So thanks for all the amazing comments from the last video. A lot of food for thought. I'm going to go over some of those comments and my thought process, a lot more context coming up. I didn't want to put all the context in the last video, but I'm going to give you an update where we're at. So I've hired an architect who came out, did this drone shot and has done some plans, which I'll talk you through. Architect was £1,050 for drawing up the plans and submitting the planning application. Planning application was about 270 so far. So the garage is going to go in about here. You see this white, this is a bit of drain pipe I've put in, which is kind of this boundary on the side of the structure. And these are the two wheel tracks when I drive in up here. So I want to leave enough space so that I can get a vehicle down this side. But basically that it's about there, this drone shot. And these are the plans that he's come up with. So basically fitting it in here. Originally he put it off that way and I had to tell him to move it back here, as I'd explained when we were actually there. But I've sort of specified a parking area off the side here and then driveway looping around between the trees. And this is where the tent is at the moment. So it would loop around there and then we'll have a drop curb here on the road, as opposed to putting the gate here on the road. It's just a bit, yeah, it's just all a bit busy around here. So I think this would make it a lot better. And he stuck a couple of Land Rover models in there with the lift, and this is how they fit in with the door here. So coming out this way, around here, and then having a bit of concrete round. I think putting the door here in the corner for the personnel door on the side. I could put it on the front here even, but a bit of flexibility with that. This is there's only a small version of this, but basically what it looks like from the side view. And then the key bit is the dimensions. He's been rather vague with this. There's no actual specific dimensions, and he's even taken this and offset it. I don't know if that's a bit of a game you play with the planners, trying to keep it a bit vague, because you're only really supposed to be within, you're supposed to build it within about 5% of the actual measurements you specify in the planning. But I've had to ask him specifically. So it's come out as ridge height 5.1 meters and eaves height 2.9 meters. Now he said, because I want 2.5 meter opening, which is basically a lifted defender with a roof rack, you'd potentially be able to get that out. You need that extra space here. Originally I was thinking 2.7 to the eaves, but he said 2.9 because of the roller shutter mechanism. So that's come out as that, which leaves about a 32-degree roof pitch, which I'll talk a bit more about why that's important later. So those are the plans. I've seen online people who begrudge paying architects to give them what is basically basic drawings of the layout, and I'd already done the measurements anyway and drawn it all on paper. But you know, and people say £1,000, it only took them 2 hours to put together this stuff. I don't begrudge people of that, but fair enough, it took him 2 hours, it would take me 40 hours to do something like this, and I'd have to probably buy some software, learn some new software. I've tried using SketchUp. I've never used anything like that before, so it's just not clicking. It would have taken me ages to do this. Plus he's doing the planning application. I found him because I basically went trawling through all the planning applications in the local area, see who had built garages, and he had successfully gained permission for a garage in the next village that, same situation, there was a garage and a workshop as two separate buildings, but building that in what was formerly agricultural land on the edge of the village was exactly this situation for me, and it'd been successful. So I thought that was a thumbs up, I'll go with that architect. It took him about a month to come up with all the drawings and what have you, and we were planning application, planning permission application is in at the moment. I did originally have a pre-application planning advice request put in, which I didn't talk about in the last video. That was running for months and months and months and months and months, and probably about 5 months. And that cost 150 quid. When I submitted the planning application, I said, look, you're supposed to get a response within 20 working days. And it's taken 5 months. And I emailed them, said, I'd chased them before and heard nothing. I chased them, I sent an email again and said, like, can I have my money back? I've got a planning application in now. It doesn't make any sense. And they're like, oh yeah, that's fine. And I got the money back within a week. I've since spoken to an architect at a Christmas party I went to, a friend of a friend, and he said pre-application planning advice, basically just if you want to build a load of houses in a field, then it's kind of helps get an informal conversation going with the planning team. probably not applicable for this kind of situation, which is more run of the mill. I just felt like I wanted to sort of go through the motions and make everything, do things a bit more by the book. Turned out it probably wasn't necessary in that respect. So we've gone full in for planning, and I got a refund, which was great. Before I dive into some of the details of all the comments from the last video, just for reference, there's 3 basically videos that are on YouTube, which I've used. I've watched many times before and trying to extract as much information as possible. The reason why I'm filming this process is I think there's a dearth of garage-related builds on YouTube from the UK. There's tons for the US, but they're so irrelevant to our context, so irrelevant that it's really difficult to find that information. So those are, there's the channel Road and Race, who built his garage, and it was kind of a kit-built garage built at the bottom of his garden around about 2020, 2021. That was in the low 20,000s. There were Fast and Fun, who built a garage, had it basically built by a builder to a bespoke design, and that was a 3-bed garage with a double roller door, and that came out at about £35,000. And then there's Trollman RS, who basically built his own garage to fit his own Discovery in. I think that was about £12,000, building himself. I would love to build my own garage, the prop from the ground up. I would happily take it on, were it not for the fact that it's preventing me rebuilding my Defender. And I've already built, in the past, I've already designed and built a wooden structure in Belize. At this stuff actually, at this hardwood, we basically chopped up hardwood. This is called sapodilla. Chopped this up in the jungle with chainsaws of fallen trees that were already down, no live trees, and built a conservation kind of post using this material. So I've kind of already done that. I've ticked that kind of thing off. So I don't necessarily want or need to build this myself. It'd be a great project. It would just make it 3 years long. So in terms of cost and budget, I'm hoping in the if I can bring in under £30,000, I'll be happy with that. Things are quite wild at the moment. So it has been said, a lot of the comments, we're basically on this 2 sides of this. Some people say make it out of timber, some people say don't make it out of timber, it'll get too expensive when you start to go custom, which is basically making the roof the way that slightly out of this with no rafters along here or joists. We're basically looking at either do a metal building and clad it with timber, or a wooden building with some steel in it to make it more structural. There's also block. Someone also suggested block garage clad in timber. Block feels like it would be really expensive and probably take longer. That's the thing. Like, a timber can be put up in a few days. Block would take potentially a bit longer. If it was in the middle of nowhere, nobody could see this, it didn't need to be aesthetic at all, then I would just build it, like get an agricultural shed and just stick it there, and that's fine. I could get an agricultural shed, like metal, probably about £12,000 I've seen for a similar size to this one. And if you wanted it insulated, then that would be £22,000. So an extra £10,000 for insulation. I do want it insulated because I do want to keep the inside, not freezing, as it were, and some kind of heating just to keep the humidity down a bit. But I think I would want to do that myself. I'd rather get the shell built, spend the money, get the vehicles in, and then work on everything else as a project. So paying £10,000 for insulation I don't think I'd want to do that. I'd want to kind of research and find out and put in the insulation myself, just so I know it was right and it was the way I wanted it to be. The problem with metal buildings is that the roof pitch is very shallow. And I want in future to be able to put solar panels on this garage. The house, the ridgeline of the house goes this way. So you've got this side of the sun, and it's not optimally placed. So I thought if I have solar panels there and solar panels there, then I basically get the spread of sun through the day. One of the other reasons why having it at right angles to the house feels like a good idea is I can put solar panels on. Solar panels should be within 30 to 35 degrees of roof pitch to get the best, to be the most efficient. So that's something I want to do in the future. So I'm trying to build that in now, which is why I don't really like the flat roof of the metal agricultural buildings. And you can say, well, they could probably do it different. Well, we're back into custom territory again. Why not go for timber frame with a bit of steel in it? I'm not quite sure at the moment. People have suggested a mansard style roof, or a kind of a flat roof where you have very steep and then flat along top to get the clearance, so you could potentially bring it down a bit and you don't have to worry about the ridge height going up beyond the corners of the roof of the Defender to then go higher to come, so you've got enough width clearance. Same reason I want a sloped roof potentially for solar panels in future. And they're ugly. I think they're really ugly. An aesthetic component to this is slightly necessary because it's so visible from the house, so visible for the neighbours, and also the missus. When it comes to space, the advice is always just add on an extra metre and make it bigger than you want. This is already like an extra metre more than I was thinking. I've had to fight for every square metre in that building from the missus so that it's not too much of an overpowering structure. So it's kind of at its limit in terms of footprint, 9 by 7 metres at the moment. People were saying, well, you've got 2 Defenders in there, you're not going to be able to rebuild the Defenders with 2 of them in there and have a lift and have all your stuff, which I completely agree with. I'm not, I do completely understand that if I'm working on one as a rebuild, I would have the other one outside, parked here. Or what I'm thinking about is having a lean-to off the side. So maybe a lean-to along here, maybe down there, or maybe around the back. So when I was rebuilding one, the second one would be out on a lean-to or outside, somewhere like that, while I was rebuilding it. But for general day-to-day use, I'd like them both to be inside, parked like this, so that they could both either drive out, and then I've got a bit of extra space here. So I do appreciate the space constraints. The second thing is that this is not going to have, it's not going to be a garage that has all the extra garage stuff in it, like lawnmower, bikes, all that kind of stuff. We do have actually a garage on the front of the house, attached to the house, but it just doesn't have the roof clearance to be able to get a Defender in. It's never going to work, which is why I want to build this. I've always wanted to build one of these anyway. So all the normal garage stuff can actually go in the normal garage. Or even I could build a little lean-to on this side just for like logs and lawnmower and that kind of stuff. The thing about the lift as well, people saying it's going to take a lot of, what you could put it outside, and I got to give them the link to the YouTube channel, I've forgotten the channel now, but where they did it outside. So you could put the lift outside. The thing about the lift is it could be temporary and it's still optional. As I said, with the installation, I don't need to build this and it to be a gold standard right from the get-go. I just want the shell up, get the vehicles in, and then I can sort of feel my way through it. If I did a pit is pretty permanent. That's quite a lot of effort to put in. But a lift, you could put in a lift, as long as the concrete pad is thick enough, put in a lift, use it for a year for a rebuild. If I don't like it, I could always take it out. Or just take it off and move it into the corner or something like that. It doesn't have to be the be all and end all. So it's kind of temporary and it's kind of optional with the lift, and that's kind of what I like. I will have the roof height for it to be flexible, that I plan for the future, but I'm not committing to it at this stage. So we'll see how that goes. Building regulations is an interesting area because I've believed that I'm going to need building regulations because I've read the building regulations and I believe I'm going to need it. And I want to do things properly. I don't want to cut corners. I don't want it to be poor. What I think it's going to need is the roof designed properly and the thickness of the concrete to be right. I do know you need at least 6 inches of reinforced concrete, preferably 8 inches with a good high strength concrete. I don't want to mess around with that. I do want a polished concrete floor as well, just so it's just easier to roll things around on with like an epoxy coating, probably something like that. When I spoke to the architect, he said, oh, you don't need builder regulations. It doesn't have sleeping accommodation in it. Which, that's not the way I've interpreted the building regulations. So let's dig in a bit now. So these are the building regulations 2010, Schedule 2, exempt buildings and work. Basically, these are all the classes of exemption you can get for building regulations. So basically, if there's another legislation, that has to be, that's class 1, There's other legislation like nuclear power plants, something like that. Class 2, buildings not frequented by people. So if it's like a machinery building or something like that, people don't normally go into, they don't have to go into it for specific reasons. Greenhouses are agricultural. Agricultural means keeping of animals, growing of food, so we can't really use that. Temporary buildings, not more than 28 days, can't use that. Ancillary buildings, building intended used in the connection of disposal of buildings, so like putting something on a building site as like an office while you destroy it, demolish something else. Then we've got extensions class 6, small detached buildings class 6, and extensions class 7. This class 7 includes a carport open on at least 2 sides. But we're not in that territory. We're in small detached buildings. So this is an exemption. Building regulations don't apply if a single detached story building having a floor area which does not exceed 30 square metres, which contains no sleeping accommodation, and is a building no point of which is less than 1 metre from the boundary, or which is constructed substantially of non-combustible material. So it's all about the logic here. Are we using ands or ors? These two are ors, so no point is, so it's 1 metre from the boundary, or it's substantially constructed of non-combustible material, and it's not greater than 30. So if it's not bigger than 30 square, it gets a bit confusing trying to interpret this. So if you've got comments, then please leave them below. So if the floor area does not exceed 30 square metres, has no sleeping accommodation, and one of the two apply, it's not less than 1 metre from the boundary, or it's built out of something non-combustible. So 30 square metres, less than 30 square metres, no sleeping accommodation, and it's more than 1 metre from the boundary is okay. And 30 square metres, no sleeping accommodation, less than 30 square metres, no sleeping accommodation, and is less than 1 metre from the boundary, but is made out of blocks and steel, then you're okay. But naturally, we're more than 30 square metres with 9 by 7. So let's go to the second one. A detached building designed to shelter people from the effects of nuclear chemical weapons and is not viewed for any other purpose. That's a bunker, basically. And a detached building having a floor area which does not exceed 15 square metres, which contains no sleeping accommodation. So if it's less than 15 square metres, doesn't have sleeping accommodation, it doesn't matter that it's made of wood or it's close to the boundary if it's less than 15 square metres. There's nothing in there about, oh, if it's bigger than 30 square metres and anything else, if it's bigger than 30 square metres, it needs building regulation. So I don't want to overrule an architect, but ultimately it's me that needs a responsibility for building regulations on my property and having the bit of paper that says you're compliant, or at least building it to the regulations. I believe that building regulations are required because it's bigger than 30 square metres. The fact that it's got sleeping accommodation is inconsequential because it says which does not exceed 30 square metres, which contains no sleeping accommodation. I see that as two conditions that are complicit. They only apply together, 30 square metres and no sleeping accommodation. If there's sleeping accommodation, you need building regulations. If it's more than 30 square metres, you need building regulations. That's my interpretation. There's lots of websites online that are very, very ambiguous and interpret this in different ways. And slightly ironic, a legal document is there to prevent ambiguous understandings or misunderstandings. There we go. I think I'm going to go building regulations or try and meet building regulations. The next bit of that is building control, when and how much, how many inspections are required to ensure that you get the certificate at the end of it. Anyway, as always, please leave your comments below if you've got any advice. And subscribe, because who knows how long this is going to take, but hopefully this is going to be my project for 2024. And I'll keep you updated as things go and whether we actually get planning permission approval. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.